Today, folks, we thought that that was a fitting song because we're going to be talking about anarchy today. We're going to be talking about how anarchy can actually increase your innovation and how systems and orders and the day-to-day, the mundane can also strangle your innovation and your pace, your growth. And so Aaron is going to talk all about that today. Aaron, what inspired this idea for you?
Um, I guess a lot of it comes out to be how we run our business, how I've thought about business, and I always felt constrained in a lot of my corporate jobs, and that we focused, and we'll talk a little bit about it, but what we spent our time on and what we focused on, and then it's how do you really, if you really want to change things, you've got to be uncomfortable with a level of freedom and chaos that accompanies that. And so it's over the years at my company, it's how have we utilized chaos and in some sort of controlled manner to change things and to innovate. And so it's trying to add context and construct to what we do.
Interesting. Now, Aaron, for folks who are learning about DMD systems recovery for the first time, I know you and I have had our own conversations about it, but tell us a little bit about where you were before in corporate world and kind of what made you want to acquire the company and grow it.
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time as a consultant to IBM, to Computer Associates, a lot of large tech companies. Ended up going into IT services. I worked for an organization that we grew and sold to a Fortune 100 company, and just saw the stifled creativity. And I would always feel like I hit a ceiling, and I did pretty well, but at the same time, I didn't see like it. I just always felt these weren't my people in a lot of ways, which was tough. And so the opportunity came to run a very small company, and it's what DMD does is we go into large organizations, we help them remove their IT assets, we erase the data and repair the items and prepare them for resale and reuse. So it was a small company in IT services, probably something often ignored. Like not a lot of people talk about what happens to things after they're used. Where do they go? What does that look like? And I had a lot of freedom from the founder who hired me originally, and said, like, go build it like the way you want and the values you want. And we've had a great run over the last 5 years. We redid the company, so so I'm an owner now, and it's just been fantastic. And it's built on a culture that is different than anywhere else I've been. And so it's fun. And maybe just as another thing, I don't know how many people on the call or listening are benefits corps as well, but that was like the first, one of the first things I did within months of joining the organization. Like, if I'm going to do this, this is the things that we want to live by, and changing what the values are and starting from there. And so we've gone from 20 people to about 120 people in the last 4.5 years.
Impressive, impressive. Well, Aaron, thanks for kind of giving us some context before we dive in, folks. Just to give you and kind of set the table for today, this is going to be about, let's say, a 35 to 45-minute keynote presentation. What I'd like you all to do is just keep your cameras on, ask questions in the chat. We're going to be calling on people after Aaron is done presenting. So either save those questions, write them down, and we'll give you the floor after this. So with that being said, let's give Aaron his time here. All you, Aaron.
All right, perfect. So all right. Today we're going to be talking about harnessing anarchy for innovation. We went through the brief introduction, so I'll skip the fun stuff about DMD, which we just talked about, and just a little bit about myself, which I mentioned. I've been in IT services for 25 years, companies like IBM, Tech Data, etc. Maybe just one fun fact is I can legally marry anyone on the call as long as you aren't already married. So and I've gotten to use that quite a few times. So that's one of something really fun to do. Today, I want to run through the quick introductions, rethinking innovation and anarchy. Then we'll start getting into a couple different models. One of them is the scales of anarchy. The second one's the types of anarchy, and then some different implementation models that we'll walk through that help you guide and think about how you may use anarchy for innovation in your own organization, and then really a closing and some items to take action with. So first off, I'd say just by joining this call today, it may surprise some of you, maybe not, but you are an anarchist. So, all right, great reaction. And why is that? Well, I'll come back to that in just a few moments. So we'll run through a couple of different items first. So the first is we talk about, and many of you guys lead organizations, we talk a lot about how do we scale, how do we grow, and what does it take? And often the things that come up and the things we talk about scaling an organization, and a lot of the presentations I attend and what I hear people talk about is really the problem of scaling. And that is that most people talk about scale and they talk about growth within the context of focus on process. And there's this intense focus, this intense idealization of we got to fix all the processes. It's process, process, process. And process is great, and not to degrade process, but because it leads to great things, right? It leads to efficiency, it leads to incremental improvements, but it's not transformational. Process is important, but innovation is mandatory. So if you want to scale, it's about innovation. Yeah, we're going to bring processes along the way, but that's going to help you improve efficiency, not to scale, not to do something different, not to do what's not been done before. So if we talk about innovation, what is it? Well, first off, these are typical answers. If you went to a lot of companies, said, "Hey, what are you innovating on? What's the innovation?" They talk about things like, "We're going to focus on reducing spend by 5%. We're going to add a new feature to our product." Well, that's not innovation. Innovation is a new method. It's a new idea. It's a new product. So the question you have to ask yourself, are you transforming or are you iterating? And if we're talking about scaling, you need to be transforming. You need to be doing something that's not been done before because the problems are going to be ones that you haven't encountered before, and they're going to need novel and new solutions. So what is anarchy? I mean, I think a lot of times when people think about anarchy, they think of mohawks and bins on fire and complete chaos. Well, that's partly true, right? So if you looked up the definition of anarchy, the first definition, and the one we're all familiar with, I think, is a state of disorder due to absence or non-recognition of or other controlling system. So that means absolute chaos, a state of disorder. What anarchy arose out of, and the second definition is one that I like to use, but it's the organization of society on the basis of voluntary cooperation without political institution or hierarchical government. So this is more of the theoretical. This is the the genesis of anarchy, which is really about how do we organize people on the basis of voluntary cooperation. We're not imposing systems. We're not imposing exactly how things have to be done. We're not only subject to hierarchical government. That's really the definition of anarchy. And that's really the way that we're going to talk about it today. And maybe slightly different with anarchy in business. We're going to talk about the absence of imposed order, allowing for self-governance and radical creativity. So again, this doesn't mean that there's not order. It just means that it's not imposed. Doesn't mean that there's not governance. It's self-governance. So a lot of it is about autonomy and independence. And within that context, I believe, and we use guided anarchy as a tool for innovation and growth. So let's go back to that surprise insight, right? What did I say everybody on this call was? An anarchist. Why did I say that? By leading an impact business, you've already embraced some form of anarchy. You're defying the conventional profit-only model of capitalism. So yes, you are an anarchist. You are defying the self-imposed order that most of us think we have to go down by being profit-only or profit motivated. So again, thanks for joining me and being an anarchist yourself. So we're all part of the same community. I want to turn now to scales of anarchy. So anarchy is a spectrum, and a lot of the ways that I think about items and models and the way we use terms in businesses, there's always a spectrum. So within anarchy, there is a number of variables. We're going to go over a number of those variables. The intent of this presentation isn't to capture every aspect, but it's to show you a couple different models, a couple different ways to think about it, and then you can use that in your own business and modify it so that it works for you and allows for innovation and creativity. So again, there's multiple variables. Each one of them lays on a spectrum, and they can be manipulated independently. You can manipulate some, all, none at any given time. And so let's talk about what some of those are. So if we look at some of the variables and the ways to think of these different dimensions of anarchy, one of them might be duration. So I am going to give uncontrolled freedom. So this is all about freedom. It's all about removing order of some sense or some sort of regulation to allow for that freedom. So I might give it for a duration. It could be this one event. We are going to get together for a meeting and we are going to remove all sorts of these types of rules. It could be for a quarter. For a quarter, I want this this aspect to just completely experiment and ignore our current process as an example. So again, it can range from an event all the way to the mission of your organization. It could be scope. How many people are involved? What's the breadth of that? Is it around just a task? Hey, we have a task, we have a problem, we have a specific thing that we are now going to unleash anarchy on? Or is it the whole department? This whole department isn't running the way we need to. We need some fresh ideas. And you're now putting these, you're going to start to mix and match these things to create some sort of controlled or what I call guided anarchy. How much control is there going to be? So when it's guided, again, this isn't probably the purest form because you are as an organization still imposing some level of control, but it can range again from there's no oversight at all to there's going to be some documented guidelines. As long as you stay within these guidelines, um, that will qualify for this instance. The second one is the amount of involvement. Are you going to give this to a specific teammate? Is it going to be an entire team? Is it going to be driven by your executive team? And the magnitude. If, as an example, you're thinking about something around your brand, is it going to be like is it going to stand for the entire brand? Or is it, hey, no, just in this set of ads that we're going to go run or a campaign, you're allowed complete freedom. And so again, these are all just individual variables that you get to pick and dial up or down as you see fit. This will come into play a little bit later as we talk about where you use it and how you apply it. But just remember that it doesn't have to be everything all at once. It can be very specific, and you can pick and choose how much freedom, how much control you want to exert at any one time. So what are the types of anarchy? So these are anarchy business types, and these are ones that we use in our organization. I'll go into a few examples after we go through the definitions. But the first aspect of it is it's pure. This is, and again, we're using some of those different spectrum dials to create these within our organization. But this is the radical, unrestricted, no oversight, go figure it out. Like there is no preconceived notion of what it may be. And so this is really good when you want to do something that's never been done before, when you want to develop a new product, a new line of service, or, you know, as you saw in some of these large organizations years ago, they used to have skunk works projects. This is, hey, you can't be bound by pick General Electric. You can't be bound by the way we measure everything, the way we report on it, because we'll never get that true innovation. We need you to go off. We're going to put you in another building. We're going to unencumber you from the bureaucracy that we have as an organization. So that would be the most pure form and one type. Another type might be problem confined. So you have a clear problem statement within your business. You've identified something. Someone on your team's identified something. I am going to give you complete freedom for that one problem. So this is one way, again, to tackle serious challenges in your organization and allow for people to be contrarian, allow people to not necessarily have to abide by things that you've already laid out. But again, you've created some sort of mechanism and construct. So there are some boundaries to it. And this is great, again, because you can include non-experts. So instead of forcing people that always solve this problem or it resides in this department, bring in other people, give them the freedom and the authority to go and make decisions and challenge things. The next one is task-based. So this is a little bit more even confined than problem confined, but it's innovation at a micro level. And this is great when you want to use things and get people at your organization that are always, this is pushing responsibility, pushing authority down to the person who deals with the issue. This is great when it questions assumptions and encourages unorthodox responses and encourages each individual teammate to exert some level of influence and freedom and creativity in the role that they accomplish. And then the last one is a really overarching, and this isn't something that you do, hey, here's a defined example. This is embedded. This is included in the values. It's how you approach problems and solutions at your company. And so if you think back to the variables, you can start to, create some of these variables and define a program for your whole company. This is how we behave. We encourage departments to do this. We want to advocate experimentation. And there's a million different ways you can do that. You can even put dollar values on it. And if you see this in a lot of organizations where if the dollar value is up to X, you can exert 100% influence of how you want to handle it. You can pick processes. You can pick, but this is embedded across the whole organization, and everybody starts to develop that mindset. So I want to give you just a couple of quick examples that we use at DMD. So for Pure, right now we have an idea of a subscription model to buy and use devices, primarily for college kids, high school kids, things that parents can do, even for aged populations where maybe the parents responsible or the individual, and this is like, I'll speak for myself. So I become the tech guru for my parents. And so I'm like, okay, I want them to always have the exact devices that I do, because when my dad calls me to say, hey, the printer doesn't work, like what's going on with it? And I'm on the phone with him, I can actually be like, oh, my printer's the exact same one. So let me walk you through it. But again, this is not what we do at our company. And it's like, how do I build out a new offering to a new audience? And so we hired someone. He doesn't come into my building. He's been working on this for the past 6 months. And he's like, oh, I need this, I need that. Like, don't worry about how my company works. And I have to tell my finance department, don't worry about what he's doing. Like, he has a budget. He can go do whatever he wants, charge it however he wants, use any tools, even if they conflict with the current tools we have at our company, because that's how we innovate. We also have another committee at our company working on solar panel reuse. Those aren't IT assets in the purest form, but we think it's a huge problem and something we want to tackle as an organization. And it might be 3 years out, but I've got 3 people that have formed a committee, one of our board members, one of our teammates, and somebody else from outside the industry, and they're working on it. They have a business plan, they're building it. It's 100% of outside of what we do today. What is an example of a problem confined? So I took one of the things that we want to be is we want to change how client obsessed we are and build our new experience. So I removed one of my C-level executives and I told him to quit working on whatever, maybe it's 5 hours a week to just keep the lights on of what you're doing, but your job is to go figure this out. Go do what you want to do. It's problem confined, complete freedom for one problem. He still has to do his day job, so to speak, but it's very problem confined. Task-based recently, again, this is because it's embedded in our culture, but one of the teammates took it upon himself to use Microsoft Copilot to create an AI tool, merging multiple spreadsheets and tools that we had been using, and he comes back and shows it to us. It's like, great, like we didn't even know it was a problem. He identified it, he came up with a solution, and my team knows because it's embedded that no matter what, we are asking every teammate every quarter how you innovated. Like, what is something you thought of that didn't fit the rules and you went and did it, and we provide a quarterly award for that. So that's embedded in our culture. So, okay, great. You've got some different ways to identify it. You can think about a task focus. You can think about a problem. Well, how do you go about implementing it? So what I wanted to share was, again, a couple of other models we use at DMD on implementation models. So the first one is universal. These are things that no matter what, it's always allowed. And so again, we have some constraints back at the task base, but universally, culture-wide, like we are driving that. And so there is a cultural, there's a value around flexibility, which is one of the ways that we talk about this, but it is, we have complete tolerance for people coming up with the craziest things, and even if it doesn't seem like it has anything to do with our business. Second one is specific. You go and pick something for a designated amount of time in a designated manner. This requires predefined limits. So you as an organization, you as a leadership team, your department, whatever, has to go back to those variables and pick those dials and then communicate it back to the team on or of who you want to include in that, how much latitude they get, and then give them the freedom within that. Rotational. So one of the things we do at DMD is we rotate. And so we have two macro themes. So the first two macro themes are we focus on the client experience and then the operational processes. And we rotate every 6 months between the two of them. And what we do is like every 6 months, we are going to go focus on the two major parts of our business one at a time. And we gather the leaders of those organizations and we rotate and then what we get very specific within that, but they know it's coming up. So rotationally, for 6 months, we are going to focus on processing operations. And then we will get together, talk about all of our processes, and we remap. And so it's once a year, we map all of our processes out and we say, okay, where are the problems? What are the issues? Where do we need to go do this? And then we rotate, we go back to a specific problem base. Okay, let's go create anarchy in these three areas. It creates practice and patterns for your team so they get used to it, and it mitigates the range. So again, you can say like, hey, it can't be anarchy everywhere because there has to be some level of control, some level of predictability, and you don't want to drain your team of all of their focus by having so many distractions at once. So the team is used to that from a cultural standpoint. And the last way we do it is these little waves. And this is my favorite way of performing this, but it allows for initial chaos and discovery. You implement a new process and you refine and you repeat yourself. So if you think about it, you're in theory letting things get way out of control because you don't know the answer. So this is best for areas where you have a great amount of change or explosive growth and you don't have an answer because you haven't been doing it long. And so you let it grow all the way out. And then you bring the team together and they say, okay, great. Now we're going to implement a set of processes, or we know what we didn't know. So based off what we didn't know and that we now know, let's bring this together. And then you do that and you let it go for a while. And then at another later date, you let it open back up because things have changed. And so if you thought about this even from a marketing perspective, is you could say, okay, we wanted to work on demand gen. We don't know what's going to work. We're going to do different things around email. We're going to send physical letters. We're going to do all these things. You let it go. Hey, we got all this great response doing this ad campaign and search engine optimization. So let's focus on that. Great. We narrow it down. We let it run for a while. After a while, you're like, hey, the results are degrading, et cetera. Okay, let's open it back up. What are other ideas? How do we create that chaos? And so this is one that I think is really good at a department level. And as you train and build this into your culture, your leaders will now like automatically start to do this at different components within their business. And so I think again, the waves is super practical and like that's probably the one we use the most is constrain, open it up, constrain, open it up, on and on. So again, when we want to talk about the guided anarchy, so a lot of things we talked about is you're going to use the variables to assign the values on the scale, and you're going to present those to your business classes, and you're going to use those within your implementation models, and ultimately that crafts the type of anarchy you want to apply and to which part of your business and to what degree. So what that looks like from a little bit more of a practical standpoint is I always like to think of things on a matrix, and it really helps. So you have the business classes and implementation types kind of mapped out. And I took a couple examples again from DMD to show you how this would actually work. So because we have a universal approach to anarchy and this freedom and creativity, and the team knows at a task base that they can do this at any time. So every task at all times is open for the line level teammate who's performing that task to improve it. Like we have a DMD operations guideline, and this is the way you do it. You're more than happy to experiment. You're responsible to do it according to the guideline. If you think you have another way, experiment, and you're 100% allowed to do that. Every single person in the team. And so that led again to our AI tool developed by our ops teammate that created a new process with this tool that merged, instead of people looking at 3 or 4 spreadsheets, integrated that. And for 95% of the times that they used to consult multiple spreadsheets, they just type the question in and the answer comes to them. So that is a task-based approach universally. Specific with a pure model of complete anarchy. So a pure anarchy, we're working on developing a solar panel reuse business. That would be, it's pure. You go figure it out. There's no constraints. You don't have to use anything at our company. You can, but this is the one problem. You go out and start working on it. Similarly, we do like I mentioned, the client experience. So right now we're focused on client experience. And after 6 months, that'll move back to processing operations. So that's pure anarchy. We bring it together, but only that group. So what happens is, in the operations component of my business right now, is we can go take a specific problem. So you'll see we have a problem right now with standardized data from our international partners. That is, we can only have one at a time for a department. So you can have one problem-defined area. So that one area is the one they're going to go work on, and there's no rules. They can do it. The team can still work on task-based all the time, but we're not adding anything more than the one because we're focused on client experience right now. And again, I would share that we didn't have this many concurrent opportunities to do this when we were 20 teammates. When we were 20 teammates, it had to be a lot more focused. We could only do a couple of these. Now that we're 120, you can now, like, again, you have more leaders, more skilled people that can operate these tools within the business. And then the last one is, as we're using Waves and it's embedded, is we implemented a new expense tool. And the questions were great from our CFO. She's like, well, who should use it? What are the approval process? How do we code all this? I'm like, we've never used an expense management tool before. Before it was all, looking at each individual receipt and one person made all the decisions. I'm like, I don't know. Can our operations director properly code to the GLs, the supplies? I have no idea. Never done it. Never asked him to do it. So it's all on our Sarah, our CFO, to say, okay, like, I'm opening it up. You guys, we're just using it, and I'm going to inspect your work after a month. You just do what you think. After a month, I'll look at it. So she's opened it up completely. She'll bring it back down after a month and say, okay, like these people. So like after the first month, I can just kind of share, because we had this conversation yesterday. She's like, okay, for everybody but operations, we don't need to send the approvals through the C level anymore. So like everybody else has a handle on it. Our operations teammates have no idea what they're doing. We're going to have to go do a training now. And it's okay, because it didn't create so much work that she couldn't work on it with her team directly. But now it's like, okay, great. We have autonomy. We have freedom. We have capable teammates. We'll let them go run. That's great. Now what do we do for the other area? So instead of trying to implement a bureaucratic, let's decide everything up front. Here's the rules. Here's the process. Here's who approved up to this dollar amount with this receipt. Like, we skipped all that. We got something implemented super fast, very quickly. And we trust that most of our teammates are responsible, and we're not going to let it get so far. It's not going to be catastrophic if we mess it up. Like, we could go back in and do all the receipts for a month. But now instead of creating bureaucracy and rules for everybody, we only have to go work with one group. And maybe it'll just be an education piece. Maybe they've never done it before, and that's okay. But we learn through doing, not through this theory and this abstract, let's get in a room and make decisions for the entire business when we have no idea what the capabilities of each team member is in this regards, because we've never done it. So again, I get super passionate about this, and I could talk for hours on, looking and putting a lot of our different the way we solve problems in this matrix. But we use this matrix all the time, coupled with the variable scales, and it's helped us tremendously. So I wanted to share a quick helpful hint of the way that I think about this. I have a specific model at DMD. I think that everybody has to kind of pick what works for their business. But if I was looking at it, I always use the coloring example. So when you were a kid, you probably got like at one point in grade school or something, your teacher hands you a piece of paper and says, draw whatever you want. And you're like, oh man, like, I don't know what to draw. and you got 15 minutes to do it, and you spend the first 10 minutes, what the heck am I going to draw? Like, I have no idea. Like, and that's okay. And so if you ask a group of primary school kids, here's a piece of paper, go draw a picture. My guess is that you get back, if you had a class of 30 people, you get back 28 different types of drawings. Two of the boys are probably drawing the same things. They're sitting next to each other. But otherwise, you're getting all these different things. You have no idea what you're getting. To me, that's pure anarchy. There is no guidance. There's no anything. The high level is draw a picture. The next version would be like if you got a picture of this, if you had this lines on the sheet that you handed out and say, okay, go draw whatever you want. Out of those 30 kids, you're going to get 29 faces and maybe you get one alien, right? Like you're going to get something that's a lot more constrained. You're not going to get 30 different things. You're going to get 30 different types of faces. And again, that's coloring with some construct. It's not pure, but maybe this is problem focused. I got a problem. I've put some parameters around it. Now go figure out how to solve it. And then the last one would be, okay, if I go color this any way you want, you're going to end up, no matter what you do with that, you're going to end up with a skull with a mohawk. It may be pink, it may be purple, maybe polka dot, and maybe it grows a tail at the end. But at the end of the day, you're going to end up with something that's a lot more constrained. There's going to be different flavors to it. People are going to view it different ways, and that's what I think of as task-based right now. So we use these three models as we think about it primarily. Is this a blank piece of paper? Are we drawing a face? Or are we just coloring within the lines? And I think, as managers, as leaders, you get to decide what lines you're putting on that piece of paper. So that was the bulk of the models we use, the way we think about it. And I wanted to kind of bring that back now and how do you take action? So overall, we think growth and impact require constant reinvention. And so if you think about growth for the business, and a lot of this is more financially oriented, you constantly have to change. If we talk about impact in the ways that we treat our communities, our environment, there's things that require innovation and reinvention all the time as well. So we believe that using guided anarchy, and again, it's not complete anarchy, it's guided. So maybe that makes you feel a little better if you start to introduce the word anarchy into your culture, but it enlists your entire team. It is in some ways, the most democratized type of culture you can create. It helps remove boundaries and it can help foster creativity. And it shows that you as an organization value creativity and you value the perspectives of each of your teammates. And I would encourage you as a leader to think about anarchy. It's not losing control. It's about selectively letting go. And I think if there's one uber point to this, it is anarchy is not losing control. It's you're selectively letting go of certain components. And so with that, I would challenge you and your team today of thinking through these two questions, right? Where can you loosen control to enable innovation? And it's not to say you're not, and many of you probably are, but are there places that you can go loosen that? And then what rules do you assume are fixed but could be broken? And a lot of times this is the hard part that I have with teammates that come into DMD is they assume because we have a process, because we have a guideline, because we have something the way we've done it, that it can't be broken. And that is absolutely not the case. And it's really hard to get people to question that. That is the hardest thing culturally that we have to overcome is people that were told, and it's actually something I used a lot in interviews for my leaders. One of the questions I ask them always is, what was something at your last company that you dearly wanted to fix, that you wanted to improve or change, and you went to your boss, you went to your supervisor, you went to the department lead, whoever, and you gave a recommendation and they didn't take it. What was it? Because I want to see where they're butting up against the constraints and what they thought about it. And the best teammates we've had are the ones that said, here's what I thought, here's how I went and went back to them. Here's what I said would happen. And they said no. Then I went back and I tried this. They continually went up against it. And what I see is the people that are frustrated with that in an organization are the people that thrive in my organization. And again, that's not for every company, but it is for ours. And I think, if I could ask you to do one thing, it's go break one rule today. It starts simple, just go do it. And then I see, again, this is because the greatest mistake that we can do is having our team constantly say, because that's the way we've always done it. So with that, that concludes the presentation. I appreciate your time. I appreciate listening, and we can absolutely jump into questions.
Well, Aaron, thank you so much for your time and giving that awesome presentation on behalf of everybody here.